Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2023. I am Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com. It is August the 17th. It is approximately 7:10 Eastern Time. The Steelers wrapped up their 16th training camp practice of 2023, the final one that's open for the public on Thursday. They will break camp on Friday. That's it. That's a wrap for the most part out there. They will play their second preseason game on Saturday night at Acrisure Stadium against the Buffalo Bills. And fresh off of his final trip out to Latrobe for 2023, the one, the only Alex Kozora. Alex, you made it. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday, Dave. Really fun year at training camp. Overall, weather was good. Really good weather today. A lower key practice, a little less to talk about. But thank you to everyone who came and said hello and said nice things on Twitter. And of course, stopped by the site to read the reports and your daily live blogs and everything we offered during training camp. I thought it was a really successful summer for us and for the site.
It really has been, and we appreciate everybody that listens and visits the site. Just really a phenomenal past 3 weeks for the site and for the podcast and all. And we can't thank you enough. Because obviously these coming out almost nightly, and then we have the three still during the week, the regular versions as well too. And Alex, first and foremost, you bang up job out there, and look, bang up job by Lynn Testa and the fine folks at touringplans.com as well, too. Once again, a sponsor of these nightly podcasts and the Alex Kozora nightly diaries and all. So one last time, Alex, tell everybody about Lynn Testa and touringplans.com.
Yeah, they deserve it for sure. One last shout out for our training camp coverage. They've been a longtime sponsor of our podcasts and nightly evening training camp diaries. So if you're looking to plan a trip to Disney, I got my folks on vacation right now. Not too Disney, but maybe they'll stop there next year. I know they talked about it some. So you want to hit up Touring Plans to best be able to prepare and plan for your trip. Usually the family one big year event, or maybe you go every 5 years, whatever the case is. But you want to talk to Touring Plans to make sure you're squared away before you depart. You can use their trip planner tool, which is awesome, to show you the least crowded park to visit every day, customized touring plans for seeing Disney's best rides, honest restaurant reviews, how to save on Disney tickets, the best hotel rooms to ask for, and so much more. Go to the website, touringplans.com. Check them out on Twitter at touringplans. And we thank Len Testa and Touring Plans for their continued support.
Absolutely. Thank you, Len. All right, Alex, Mike Tomlin obviously met the media earlier in the day and gave a rundown. We'll talk a lot more about what he had to say on the Friday morning podcast. But and obviously didn't have a post-practice media session because of that. But give us the final rundown of participation levels coming out of the Thursday practice as this team gets ready to play their second preseason game Saturday night.
Knock on wood, this team's in good shape. Only a couple players, only three, in fact, not practicing at all today. That was Nate Herbig with his shoulder, Larry Ogunjobi with the right foot. He did not have the boot on when I saw him later in practice today, so that's obviously a good sign. And it appeared Isaac Seumalo got the day off. He wore his bucket hat he always wears whenever he gets a rest day, so I don't think that's anything to worry about. Nick Kwiatkowski, Trey Norwood, and Keanu Benton all limited. They went through individual period, did not go through the team period. I was hoping Benton would get all the way back before camp breaks, but still hopeful he can play against Buffalo on Saturday. Mike Tomlin essentially saying that Norwood, Ogunjobi, and Herbig will not play against the Bills. He didn't mention Kwiatkowski. We'll see on him, but I think overall for 16 practices, most in pads in a game, this team's in good shape health-wise.
Yeah, what was the biggest skirmish out there this year?
In terms of a fight?
Or what? What was the biggest dust up, or was there any? None.
There was almost nothing. I can't even tell you anything that came close to that. I think maybe like Nate Herbig, and a defensive player got a little wrapped up in a Friday night's run period. But other than that, I mean, there was nothing even approaching. But I've never seen no training camp fights and skirmishes and all that stuff, extracurriculars ever before. I know Mike Tomlin asked about that, said they're not building an MMA team, they're building a football team. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You figured tempers would boil over at some point during camp.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get into it. And obviously, they didn't have the pads on. It was, and I guess it was an upscale walkthrough more than anything today. But as we go through these position groups, if you would, after you give whatever notes you have for today on them, I'll ask you, maybe what's your biggest takeaway or your biggest surprise or the thing that you learned, the most about each position group. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, let's start with the quarterback position then. What notes do you have today on that? 7 shots and kind of what's your biggest takeaway or the biggest thing you'd learned about that position group?
Yeah, 7 shots. The defense 1 overall today, and generally speaking, the defense wasn't trying to compete too much, and they didn't, avoiding contact was kind of the theme of the day. So as you said, it kind of felt like scout team stuff, walkthrough type stuff, and so evaluating is really difficult to do. And I'm not going to do much of that today, but I have the defense winning 7 shots, 5-2. Tanner Morgan did get some reps today, so he had 3 practices where he got team reps. It's been over a week since the last time he got them, but got a couple to end today's session. Overall thoughts, basically that this group was set in stone. Pickett 1, Trubisky 2, Rudolph 3. Rudolph struggled more than I thought he would. I thought Pickett got off to a bit of a slower start, but then from really that Friday Night Lights practice on, I think he was really consistent, really strong overall. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to grade them. I'll have those articles in the upcoming days, but I thought Pickett, had a really good second half of training camp.
All righty. Let's move to, I guess, the running back position next.
Yeah, really not much to note today because they weren't even being, they weren't even being touched, let alone basically being tackled. Valladay getting some more reps there today, but it's hard to really note too much about him. Anthony McFarland kind of being the takeaway. There really was no running back competition that you thought there would be for that third spot when you go into camp with Graham and Hagens, and McFarland thought this would be a really good contested battle. Internally, it really has not been. I think this team could still go outside option if they wanted to replace McFarland, and Connor Hayward getting true running back looks was certainly something notable here. Najee Harris probably a bit more disappointing than I thought it would be. It wasn't terrible. I think they kind of made it where it was like Le'Veon Bell, back in his day, where they really wouldn't let him be touched and tackled too much in camp. And so it's hard to really write home about him too much because they're just really being careful with him. But I was hoping to have a bit more of a glowing report on Najee Harris. But I think the story is McFarland internally winning that third running back spot and really the lack of competition between him and the others.
Yeah, we'll obviously see what Valladay has to offer in this preseason game. I have to think he's going to get some work. And then the big thing that Mike Tomlin said, and we'll talk more about this on Friday morning, sounds like he's going to get it. Hopefully they kick the ball off a little bit shorter and let McFarland get some returns in, because that would help strengthen his spot if he could show that he could be the kickoff guy.
Yeah, and I hope that happens. So it sounds like it's going to be McFarland and Austin doing a lot of the kicks and punts respectively. We'll see how much Olszewski mixes in. But yeah, 2 guys you want to see on special teams. Definitely that's going to be McFarland and Calvin Austin, the third.
All right, and wide receiver position, obviously probably not a lot to pass along note-wise, but on top of it, who had a better camp? Deontay Johnson or George Pickens, or is it a push? And it sounds like Hakeem Butler showed us who he is today.
Yeah, in terms of best camp, it's not Hakeem Butler, I'll tell you that much. And he's a guy that had some buzz, and I'll be talking about him in an article tomorrow, kind of a training camp recap. And 2 drops today. 1 drop, everybody drops 1, but he had them on back-to-back targets. I think they were separated by just 2 or 3 plays. And so hands have been an issue for him coming out of Iowa State, and just too many drops, not enough big plays. That's the book on Hakeem Butler. In terms of Pickens and Johnson, that's a really good question. I'm kind of debating that myself for the article I want to write in the morning. I would say this way. I think Johnson, pound for pound, had a better camp if you're just looking in a pure vacuum. I think Pickens, because he's younger, a second-year guy, has shown more development and seems poised to make a big jump. So it's kind of both, but I think they impressed in slightly different ways.
Well, if you had to draw it out, that's exactly the way you'd want it drawn out, right?
Yeah, 100%.
At the start of camp there. Did you learn anything about Calvin Austin III in this camp?
The speed's still there coming off the foot surgery. And so that was, one box to check, and to see that translate inside a game is important and impressive. Still a lot of work to be done, but to know that, okay, this guy can be a playmaker, the speed's still there. Those were good confirmations.
What about Allen Robinson? Not that you didn't know a lot about him coming into training camp, but now that you've seen him in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform in a camp, do you have any, overarching takeaway about him?
He was as advertised. He's making the tough catches over the middle, option routes, slot work, has played some on the outside, the leader. I mean, he's everything Pittsburgh, I think, was looking for when they dealt for him.
All right, tight end position.
Yeah, today, not much to know. Connor Hayward, a couple of nice catches. I should say wide receiver Cody White, a couple of nice catches today. But again, the stakes were pretty low. In terms of what I learned overall, to see Darnell Washington really come alive and progress once the pads came on, especially. It was a tough first 4 days for him, but I think he slowly got better, got more involved in the offense, was a big-time red zone touchdown threat. I'll have camp stats for probably Saturday morning. I don't know exactly who caught the most touchdowns this camp, but Washington maybe number one and certainly on the podium, worst case scenario. So that it was a good camp overall. Connor Hayward, the true athlete that he is, don't even call him a position, just call him an offensive athlete because he did it all. I mean, he was tight end, slot receiver, running back, he threw a touchdown pass. Yeah,
he's a fantasy flex, right?
He's a fantasy flex. Yeah, I know that Josh Carney kind of called him Pittsburgh's version of Taysom Hill. Obviously, he's not going to give you the true quarterback aspect of it, but beyond that, I think Josh is on the money. So we knew he's versatile, but I think Pittsburgh pushed the limits to see how versatile he can be.
All right, let's move to the offensive line. A little small development, I think, there today.
Yeah, I was really paying attention to O-line just because there wasn't a lot else to look at. So I just wanted to see how the O-line was working, especially with Herbig being out and St. Malu getting the day off, having 12 offensive linemen working. So they're pretty light there. And to see Dylan Cook get second team tackle reps and a lot of the team period today over LaRaven Clark was notable. I'm happy to see Cook get some up reps just to see him against some different people, and then even play a bit of left guard today for a handful of snaps, which I didn't expect. And that's probably partially because they had a couple of guards out, and again, say Malu and Herbig, but more that Cook can do, the more value he can have, the better his chances of sticking on the practice squad will be.
Yeah, it sounds like he's almost a shoe-in, barring someone coming in from the outside at this point to be a practice squad guy, doesn't it?
It feels that way. I mean, you never know for sure what could happen. We thought Tyler Vaughn was going to be a shoe-in for the practice squad last year at wide receiver. Still don't know what happened there, but based on what I'm seeing, I think Cook is certainly deserving of that opportunity to hang around.
All right, and Kendrick Green ended camp, I guess, technically, it's hard to say with Herbig sideline, right? But he was running second team center, and nothing for Spencer Anderson over the ball today, or no?
Yeah, nothing. He did some stuff in warmups early in practice, but in team, he never, had a center snap, and so I don't know what that was. It was, predominantly Mason Cole, of course, and Kendrick Green. They were first and second team. Ryan McCollum had a couple of snaps. He's, snapped throughout camp, and he's got a background doing that. But I thought Anderson would get a look today. He bounced around between right guard and tackle, but he did not work at center today.
Your biggest takeaway from that group, would it be, just a maybe a continual rise by Broderick Jones, or if it's a negative sense, would it be like maybe Ryan McCollum not being the guy guy you thought maybe he would be, or fill in the blanks there?
Well, my first thought when you asked the question, and again, people I'm sure will send some hate mail for jinxing this ahead of the game, but how healthy this group has been, I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you do, Dave. When was the last time a starting Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lineman missed a game? Preseason and regular season. Obviously, none of them missed in the regular season last year. They all played on Friday night against Tampa Bay. They're all poised to play against Buffalo. Last preseason, last 2021 regular season, I don't know when that was. But
could it have been Dotson against when didn't Dotson get hurt? Was it against the Lions?
Yeah, I think actually he did miss. I'd have to go back and check. It probably was in the preseason a year ago, if I had to guess. Maybe Dotson, because Kendrick Green was getting a lot of extra work, I think, in there. But point is, they haven't missed a game.
Oh no, wait! I'm thinking the year before that, because that was the year that Ben went out, because that was the Mason Rudolph game. So that
Oh,
would
you
have
thought you were
been,
talking regular season. I thought you were talking
yeah.
preseason last year.
No,
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 no.
there wasn't.
I'm
Yeah.
mixing up my years here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good. So you're asking when's the last time a Steelers starting offensive lineman missed a game in a regular season or
preseason even just missed a game inside a stadium. I don't know. It's been a long time. It's again wasn't last regular season.
Didn't Chiquamo Okorafor miss one with like a concussion or I don't know. That's a great question. I'm gonna have to dig on that.
Last year in the regular season?
Not last year.
Okay.
May have been the year before that.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up. I don't want to take up too much time on the podcast.
To more individual evaluation, just to see Dan Moore running steadily ahead of Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones probably got, if I had to pick a number, I should have kept track of it, but I didn't. So I apologize. He got maybe 20 first team reps at left tackle this camp, maybe a bit more, give or take, but right around that number. It was Dan Moore never got a second team rep. He was either first team left tackle or a little bit first team right tackle, including 1 or 2 snaps today. So I think if the season ended today, Dan Moore would remain the starter. Could that change? It could. I think Jones had a good camp. I think he's progressed nicely, but Dan Moore has done just the same.
Would you consider Kendrick Green last year with the calf in week, 16?
No, because he wasn't the starting.
Wasn't he the starter up until then, though?
Are you talking last year or 2021?
Oh, 2021.
Oh, yeah, when Hassenauer replaced him, yeah, that would count, sure.
Yeah, I think that's one. It was killing me, man. It's absolutely killing me. And then,
did anyone miss in the preseason last year, though? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't have that. I don't have that in front of me here right now. Quit killing me and sending me down these rabbit holes.
That's my mission every time.
Who's hosting this podcast, me or you? Okay, moving on from offensive line. Let's go to the defensive line.
Yeah, again, tough to evaluate. A lot more extra reps for Loudermilk. A couple of swats at the line of scrimmage. Braden Fehoko had one that got picked off by Jonathan Marshall. So a D-line swat to a D-line pick. Don't see that too often, but that was something there from Fehoko to round out the nice camp that he's had.
Okorafor missed week 4 Green Bay in 2021 with a concussion.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, I mean, Green would count later in the season. So the question is there just anything between?
All right, what's your biggest takeaway? I mean, you've said it several times that they're going to have some tough decisions here, especially if they decide to keep 7 defensive linemen. I guess that would be one takeaway that maybe you didn't really foresee coming here. And I guess the second one would was Loudermilk kind of the biggest jump throughout this thing, at least looking back at it?
It's a jump. Yeah, I think the overall takeaway is the quality of that room, the depth of that room. I mean, Keanu Benton, just getting to see him live and play so well against Tampa Bay, and whether that's his hand use, is how well he moves, or just being a big guy. His lower half is ridiculous. How built this dude is, and how well he can move in space, and his ankle flexion, and just the overall athletic ability that he has. So that really, sticks out to me in a pretty positive way. But I would just say overall, I think the D-line in general, from starters to, Montravius Adams to Loudermilk and Watts and Benton and Fehoko, all those guys have had a good summer.
What is the biggest thing maybe you learned about Leal through these last 3 weeks?
It really came from the Tampa Bay game. I don't know how much I had learned in camp up until that point, because he had been hurt. He had missed some time. But the hand use that he had against the run, I thought was really advanced. I still think there's work to be done as a pass rusher, trying to develop some moves and really refine his game in that sense. But I thought as a run defender in that one game, and it is just one game, we'll keep watching, but I was really impressed by the stoutness of it and his ability to work off of blocks.
All right, let's go to inside linebacker now. And boy, the complexion of this room really changed after the start of training camp.
Yeah, and in a good way. Now, I don't have any takeaways today, but the overall takeaway is the rotation that I expect to see between Holcomb and Roberts and Quan Alexander, and potentially Mark Robinson, maybe some real specialized, run-heavy packages the way that he was employed or deployed last year. So I'm not even convinced Holcomb will be a true every down guy. There may be sometimes where it's Roberts and Quan Alexander. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. But they like that room. It's been impressive overall. The energy, the physicality, the intensity they bring were things that were largely missing from that room last year. There's a lot of experience in that room, which was, I wouldn't say missing last year, but I think it's been heightened this year. But you're going to see a rotation pretty heavily at that position.
Unequivocally, this room is an upgrade over last year's room, right?
Based on what I've seen so far, now I understand Pittsburgh asks a lot from their inside linebackers, and they can get overexposed probably, and it's not always going to be sunshine and roses. Roberts is he is who he is type player, and Alexander has bounced around a bit, and Holcomb I think is a fine player, but never going to probably be an upper echelon type of guy. But the collective strength is probably stronger together, some of their parts kind of deal where they're going to complement each other well, and it should be enough to give Pittsburgh what they need.
All right, let's move on to Nick Herbig and the Three Horsemen.
Yeah,
I mean that's got to be the takeaway, right?
Sure.
Nick Herbig's got to be the takeaway at this point. I've been pleasantly surprised by some of the reports, and obviously the tape, the whatever he played, 13, 14, 16 snaps the other night in Tampa Bay. I mean, it's not. We still got a lot to learn about him, I think. But, I mean, so far, so good, right?
He's shown he can earn that longer look at outside linebacker, and there's no intention and no desire, and rightfully so, to try to move him anywhere else right now. It was a really good camp for him. Pass rusher, run defense, generally being available, missed a couple of days, but I was so impressed by him missing those last couple practices leading up to the Tampa Bay game where you thought this guy might not play. He comes in, setting second half and then has a great half of action. And just as you said, 13 plays or so. So I think Herbig's contributions and showing this guy might be able to stick on the edge is a big takeaway. And then I would just say behind that, I thought you would see more from Roche and Dukeway, Perales. Somebody there might emerge. As typically you get a camp darling at that position in Pittsburgh. Roche did have a really good day the other day in run defense, but overall that group was pretty quiet.
Is Roche the first guy outside the bubble, in your opinion?
If I had to pick, yes, just because of the experience that he has and time in the NFL, mostly with the Giants, obviously. I think probably all with the Giants in terms of regular season action. I think in Dukeway he's coachable and, he's had his moments, and Perales is a decent effort guy, but I would say Roche to be next man up.
All right, let's go to cornerbacks. And I would imagine maybe this is the group that you'd learn the most about during camp. Of both sides of football. Would I be correct or no?
Yeah, I'd have to think about it specifically, but you probably learn more about receivers and corners because they're always on display. There's never where it's trenches and it's, they're in helmets and they're not really able to be evaluated in that way. You can always kind of evaluate some of the skill guys on the outside. I mean, Levi Wallace, super steady, super consistent. No one talks about him. Really good camp. To really confirm that, yes, Patrick Peterson will be moved around and play slot corner on third downs. He's going to rotate some safety and kind of basically be what Cam Sutton was last year. He truly, I think, will be used in a similar sense. And to see Joey Porter, got quiet the back half of camp because he had the ankle injury, missed the game. But I think he's been really promising so far. So that top three, Peterson we'll see, but I think overall the top three looks good.
What about the slots?
It's two-man race right now with Sullivan and Riley. It's been consistently every day for many practices. Sullivan being first team slot, Riley second team. Take that for whatever it's worth. I've kind of mentioned before the different styles or different body types at different backgrounds. Riley's played safety. I think they both have a case to make this team, and I have my roster prediction going up, I guess, tomorrow, and you'll see what I decide at cornerback.
There's a good tease for you. All right, safety. The unfortunate thing about the safety position is that, so many of them miss so much time, especially, about 2/3 through camp for the most part there. But once they did get on the field, were you able to learn anything, sub-package stuff or anything like that?
I like the group overall. I learned that, and I think there's an appetite to use some of those three safety big nickel packages. We saw that very late in camp when everybody got healthy with KZ and Neal and Minkah Fitzpatrick, of course, being out there. But yeah, Kenny Robinson, probably the camp darling of the summer, guy that came out of nowhere, had some really good plays, probably a bit quieter the last week or so and wasn't as impactful in the game, but can't expect interceptions every single day, every single practice. But overall, he's making a push for a spot. He's been available, practiced every single day, took every single rep that he possibly could. Trenton Thompson, I think, is somebody that can hang on the practice squad. He's got some ball skills and playmaking ability and a 1-2 as a tackler. I think a little out of control, a little erratic, but a guy that there's some traits to continue to develop with. So, and then Trey Norwood had a good camp until he got tripped up by that leg injury. Hopefully, to hear Mike Tomlin say he probably won't play against the Bills leaves you one game to try to, make your case. And that's kind of tough to do. So that's unfortunate for him. But whenever he was healthy, the play looked better, especially in terms of him as a tackler and run defender.
That was going to be my next question, but you answered it. How did he look, unfortunately, before that leg injury? And, you basically said you thought he was having a good camp overall.
Yeah, there'll be tough decisions at corner and safety and trying to keep all those guys. And, probably going to be a tough cut there. But a lot of versatility. I mean, all these guys move around. They're all interchangeable. You can barely even call a guy a corner anymore because he can play safety or, call a safety a corner because most of these guys can move around and offer more than that. So they're really Pittsburgh is, and it's probably league-wide, leaning into that hyper versatility in the back end.
All right. What about the specialist overall? Not that
I would just say,
they're probably, it's hard to do, especially long snappers and all like that.
I love trying. We love trying. I would just say status quo. I think it's going to be the three who were out there last year, and I was open to the idea of potential change and competition and, some new guys becoming starters. But to me right now, it's Boz, of course, Christian Kuntz, and Presley Harvin. I don't really get the sense that Mann and Sunohara are really challenging the incumbents too hard right now.
All right. What about what's the best thing you saw today? And 7 shots, is 7 shots really, it's in your notes. No. Is it worth breaking down?
No, again, the practice itself was really low key. I mean, there really wasn't a lot to talk about. So if I tried to evaluate practice, I really would be lying to you. The best thing I saw today was probably the weather because it was really nice outside. But and this is not a knock on the team. It's just, the scout team, they're really kind of more in a game week mode, which this happens quite a bit, the final practice of training camp. But just seeing, Cook get some second team reps and even some left guard work is probably the most notable thing to talk about today. I don't know what's going to happen in game. I assume that, say Malu's going to play in this game, probably less necessary for a guy like Dylan Cook to get in there, but just to see them trying it there, maybe speaks highly of what they think about, his potential, his football IQ, and him just being available and ready. There were so many guys this year that just practiced every day that were just available and working, and that's just so important for them and for the team.
All right. What would be like your 30,000 foot entire? This is a hard question. 30,000 foot entire takeaway from the Steelers 2023 part one of a part 8 question.
Okay.
What would be your 30,000 foot, kind of major takeaway of the Steelers 2023 training camp? And part 2 would be, I guess, what any thoughts of way you entered this training camp of maybe something that you thought versus the way you exited, I guess, in other words, were there any kind of preconceived kind of thoughts and, that this and that happened,
Sure. I'll answer the second question first. I think I would go back to the inside linebackers and the strength of them. Now, obviously, Quan Alexander did not begin camp with the team, so we didn't know he was going to be a Steeler when this team reported to camp for their conditioning test. But I think, again, the strength there, the impressive play, Holcomb, Roberts, Alexander, the continued development of Mark Robinson is making me feel right now better about the collectiveness of their group. Individually, they're never going to be, top end guys that are going to make Pro Bowls and get a lot of national press, but I think if they can just all work together and stay healthy, that's going to be a good enough group. And I'm encouraged by them. In terms of the big takeaways, I actually will answer that in an article tomorrow. I'll have a Steelers training camp awards. Not going to do winners and losers. Going to do a little award show.
All right.
A bunch of different categories. One of them being my biggest takeaway from training camp. I'll answer the honorable mention to the award, not the actual winner. So you guys can click tomorrow. I'll have another tease there for you. This is going to be a little pandering. I'm kind of turning up the pandering knob, but I think it's sincere and true. Steelers Nation was representing really good this year. The crowds, I think, were record. They don't have them for when they were at Saint Vincent College, but that last Sunday practice was the biggest, crowd and line of cars I've ever seen. The Friday Night Lights practice, which granted was the first since 2019, but that had almost 14,000 people. That was a true record. And so I just think the real, I wouldn't say renewed, but just the real enthusiasm for this team, watching this team, for a team that missed the playoffs last year, nonetheless. It's not like they were a team that were in the AFC title game and, they feel like they can really are the Super Bowl favorites this year or really in that top 5 kind of group. So to see Steelers Nation out there basically every single day and just in some really big numbers, even caught me by surprise.
Obviously, a lot. I'm gonna throw you a bit of a softball here, and obviously, we still got a ways to go before the season starts, and things can happen. Unfortunate things can happen. But from where you from after what, and maybe you were in the over crowd before training camp, but after seeing what you have seen this year in training camp, are you over 8.5 wins, or are you under 8.5 wins?
I don't know exactly where I was before camp. I think I was still over 8.5 before we got eyes on this team in Latrobe, but I would say I'm much more comfortably over that exiting camp. Because of the health of the team. Now I know there's 2 games to be played and starters are going to play more, and knock on wood, we'll all cross our fingers and hope this team remains that way. But that's always one big thing out of camp. Did you stay healthy? I know there were some injuries. To lose Corey Trice really sucked, and some other guys like Alfonso Graham, but nothing that's going to change a record prediction for the season. And just the offense that looked stronger, and some of the weapons on this team, and the inside linebacker is looking better. So I think I think I was over that 8.5 mark before camp, but I think I'm more confident in that right now.
All right. Alex, this is the 15th and final edition of the 2023 Terrible Podcast special edition episodes. And man, you just, once again, you did a fantastic job. I don't know how you do all you do out there and see all you see and write all that stuff down like that. But man, I do this every year. I mean, personally, I thank you. And it just so happens, 15,000 people get to listen in and get the information that you share with me, because I appreciate you being, the eyes, and you help fill in a lot of blanks for me throughout this 16 practice process here. And I really feel prepared, and did so again this year when that first preseason game came about. And man, I've learned a lot from you throughout this process, and all I can do is say thank you. I mean, you're the best at what you do at that, at this. I don't know how you do it, but you sure do it well.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who supported the site and listened to the podcast, and all the many people that came up and said hello before and after practice. Really too kind. It's very flattering. But some people say they were more looking forward to meeting me than watching the players, which is such a crazy statement to think about. But really thankful for that. And yeah, to have the 10-year anniversary at Steelers Depot just the other day is really special and means a lot to me. So thank you guys, and we'll be back out there for next year.
Absolutely, we will. All right, that's going to do it. Alex and I will be back Friday morning with a full version of the podcast, talking about what all Tomlin had to say. We'll start getting you ready the best we can for the Steelers' second preseason game Saturday night at Acrisure Stadium against the Buffalo Bills. So with that, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast. Another special edition, and the final edition, special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2023 with Dave and Alex.